Hi. Should probably start talking. It's been kind of a rough week. Well, actually, it started off great, and then it turned out a little rough. I was reminded quite well as to my avoidance and how it came back to bite me because of something that happened well over 10 years ago. And I should probably give it some context. I currently work as a consultant, but I've been wishing to learn a lot of new things ever since around the time that I don't know, like a couple of years back, I've been looking on getting certified on things and learning new things. I've been so looking into those things and growing that I realized that I have ambition now. And then you sort of realize that sometimes ambition and confrontation come head to head. And about 10 years ago, I was a supervisor at a company or at a call center. And there was this guy, which was always very difficult for me to deal with because I always had to be telling him to do his job, for him to take calls or not break rules. I had to confront with him a lot, and then I had to, in many ways, sort of bend the rules for him. I found myself in these weird situations that I shouldn't, that I felt like my own ethics were compromised. And I sort of felt like I would compromise my ethics for friends or people that I liked. But then when I met him, I knew that that was wrong and that I shouldn't be bending rules. So it was sort of like this situation where I was kept in check, and I was always felt like I was in conflict, and I had to evaluate him. And he had a best friend that I think was his boyfriend. They were always together, and the other guy was a great guy. I kind of knew him well enough. They were always together. They lived together, and I normally came and picked him up when their shifts were at a different time. So you kind of saw something going on there. I started to want to. My feelings got in the way of. I don't know, like I tried to compromise my feelings of professionalism and my conflict with this person, both of them, and they were coming head to a head. So I started seeing ways of passively punishing him, if that makes any sense, because I kept telling him to do the things and he went behind my back. He started talking badly about me. He wanted me to not be a supervisor, and one of the things I didn't mention is that he applied for the same position that I won. And well, that sort of started the conflict, and from that point on, a lot of things just kept going on and on. And I inadvertently, due to punishing him with being late, because if you work at a call center, sorry about that. If you work at a call center, it's a thing that you have to be there on time to take calls. You have to consider that there are other people depending on you, and it's my responsibility to maintain like balance and fairness in queues. Something which I see, like, even though it was something that I did for myself, I never saw other people implement it. Or sometimes I saw it, but not. Having a boss that you respect is so important when you're in work at your job, and normally you sort of have to make that concession that more than likely you may not even like your boss, and that's too bad. And I try to have like good work ethic. I don't know. At least I like to tell myself that. So the point is, I got his best friend fired due to latenesses because I punished them both on latenesses, but they ended up firing the other guy and not him. But just he stayed there for maybe a couple of months until the other guy got a job, and then he followed him, and apparently he got a job as a supervisor, and then he made him supervisor. So fast forward to 10 years down the line, I've been looking to learn about cloud computing and cloud security and a bunch of things, and I got a job position they offered me. So I went and aced these interviews. It was amazing. They were so happy with me that they were willing to give me like salary I asked, a whole bunch of benefits. The only problem with it is that where I live, it's a traffic jam nightmare. And that was like the only con, as well as the fact that I'm gonna get married soon. And thanks to the fact that I mentioned that I was gonna get married, they told me who my supervisor was gonna be, or my manager was gonna be. When I heard that, it was going to be this guy that I had so many conflicts with 10 years ago. When I heard it, my heart sank. I felt like my blood pressure lower. I felt cold. And initially I just said, yeah, I just nodded for a moment and then ended my call with the recruiter. And then I mulled over it for a bunch of times. I spoke about it with my two best friends, with my future wife, and another friend, and they told me all the same things, like, look, if you have this past experience with this person and you know just how emotional you're gonna get, and you know these things, like one of my friends just flat out told me, like, just don't take it. Like, look, you know where you're going through, what you're gonna be going through, and like, just, you can't be living your life like putting yourself through a lot of sacrifice to just get there, as well as like there's going to be a whole, like, since I'm going to be living in a place that's a little farther away from the capital city, that I would make a lot of sacrifices just to get there. Just don't take it. I spoke with my girlfriend and she just said something similarly, like you said, you have to think about it, because if this is your dream job and you're gonna let this one person do this. So I had asked, like, before, I eventually asked the recruiter to call me back. I spoke with him and I told him, like, look, what do you think makes this guy a great manager? And he gave me all these reasons. Then I asked, and he told me eventually, of course, who was his manager, and it turned out that it was his boyfriend, or possible boyfriend. Like I told you, they seemed that way. And then I asked, okay, how do the evaluations work? And he told me that unfortunately it's 100%. I said unfortunately, 100% the feedback came from my manager about how my performance was rated. From there, my instincts kicked in, and I felt like in part my fight or flight, and it was flight, instincts kicked in, as well as my avoidance kicked in, and they all screamed no. So I said, thank you so much for the opportunity, but I have to decline. From that, I've been feeling terrible. Been feeling that it was me running away. But I don't know, man. I guess I have to do it. Oh well. Thank you for hearing me.